The sixth generation of consoles was a big one because it was the first time Microsoft had released a system worldwide to compete with the likes of Sega, Nintendo, and Sony. Dubbed the Xbox, it was based on PC hardware from Intel and Nvidia, a powerhouse combo that really stood out against its competition. With all that power, Microsoft also needed some decent software, and despite not having much support from Japan, Sega was behind them with some huge releases. So much so, it was many of the Sega faithful that had migrated to the Xbox after the Dreamcast was discontinued. Some even dubbed it the Dreamcast 2. I have to admit I was pretty high on the Xbox myself, thanks to Sega's output. That motivated me to show it some love, and in this episode, we will be going over what I think are the best games Sega released on the Xbox in top 10 format. The amazing thing is that there were so many great choices, I actually had to leave off some pretty awesome games, a testament to the quality Sega was responsible for. This is gonna be fun, so let's get started. Dreamcast and arcade fans got a nice surprise with 2003's Crazy Taxi 3 High Roller. This was a port of the Chihiro-based arcade original, and it's pretty much spot on. You had a return of Small Apple and the West Coast, plus the new Glitter Oasis for a total of 3 areas to play. Of course, it wouldn't be Crazy Taxi without the minigames, and you get a nice suite of those as well. There's new drivers, and the stages have been tweaked so stunts like jumps, boosts, and power sliding are easier to employ. In many ways, it was kinda like the greatest hits of everything you had seen in the first 2 games. There's no question the formula was getting a tad stale by this point, and that's why it's an honorable mention and not in the top 5. It chugs a bit here and there, and it didn't add any significant gameplay additions over the Dreamcast games. It was still nice to see the Xbox represent the series, and I don't think it's nearly as bad as some people claim. Some love it and some hate it, but I have to mention the often maligned Headhunter Redemption. I once heard someone say this was part Metal Gear, part Siphon Filter, and part Resident Evil. That description is pretty much spot on. There's stealth, there's gunfights, and it's loaded with weird and crazy puzzles. If that sounds fun, you have one obstacle to get past to enjoy it all: the control. Nothing here is broken, it's just really difficult to come to terms with. Nothing on the control pad feels like it's where it should be, and you'll be fumbling with it for a while. If you have the patience, there is a big story here, 2 characters to play as, fun and engaging missions, and a graphics engine that is pretty solid. Our last honorable mention is ESPN NBA 2K5. At the time of its release, it was such an incredible leap for these types of games. The progressive scan visuals were awesome. The 4-player co-op and competitive matches were legendary. The gameplay gave you unprecedented control over the ball. Building your team, you had to deal with players' personalities, train them properly, and manage your franchise like a professional in order to see the championship. Sega had been building its sports dynasty for years, and it paid off with one of the very best that generation. Coming in at number 10 is 2002's ToeJam and Earl 3 Mission to Earth, a direct sequel to the second Sega Genesis title. This was in many ways a continuation of what we saw in the original, however. 2 players can explore together, find loads of items, and partake in puzzles, rhythm games, and a pretty crazy boss encounter. This began as a Dreamcast title but was never finished there. Fortunately, Visual Concepts and ToeJam and Earl Productions got the job done here on the Xbox, and it's a pretty fun multiplayer adventure. The best part of this title is definitely the wacky humor and completely insane level design. There's so much to see and do, and you'll need to play it twice to see it all. That won't be a problem either, thanks to the incredible soundtrack.
Alright, a shiny key.
Somebody
Yo,
save
man,
me!
I am full. Ow! You little... fresh pumpkin pie. I like it. Yeah, a key.
Somebody save me!
Toe Jam got a key.
Congratulations! Congratulations!
Spike Out Battle Street was released in 2005 and is a continuation of the series that began in the arcade on the Sega Model 3. This doesn't get the love it deserves. It's true the gameplay is fairly simple and straightforward, but for the longest time this series was the closest thing we had to a 3D Streets of Rage. It has so much to offer those that appreciate the beat 'em up genre. There's a dozen players to choose from, there's 4-player co-op, and the old school arcade design has its charms. I want to put some emphasis on that last part though. Those looking for something with a deep story, well-acted cinematics, and gameplay that does something different, well, you're likely to come away hating this. It's good old-fashioned game design that's a blast with some friends, but not much more. In 2002, the Xbox received Shenmue II. You know why it's here and what it's all about. This continues the saga of Ryo as he searches for his father's murderer and those that can aid him in his quest. This is much larger than the first game with a lot more to do. Things still feel similar to the first as far as the combat, quick-time events, and mini-games, so it's an easy transition. The story and characters were always the draw to these games for me, and this one is loaded with intrigue and mystery. Don't be afraid to jump into part 2 directly if you missed the first one. This includes a DVD that contains the full story of the original adventure and all the important characters. It's a complete package that brought the game to North America in style.
I'm scared! They're going to kill me! I didn't do anything!
Hand over the kid if you don't want to get hurt.
What are you going to do?
It's none of your business.
I don't think so.
Looks like he wants to get hurt.
I'm not the one who'll get hurt here.
One, now!
Run!
What the? Wait!
Smilebit gave us Gun Valkyrie in 2002, a great game hidden behind some incredibly complicated design elements. You will be blown away by how great this game still looks today. Think of it as sort of Metroid if it were a pure action game, or more to the point, a sci-fi alien slaying adventure. It has loads of weapons and moves for you to learn and upgrade, and you even have 2 different characters to choose from. The one thing you absolutely must have to appreciate this gem is patience. The control and difficulty take a lot of time to get used to and understand. You will have moments of extreme success, jetting around and laying waste to your enemies, only to be met with crushing defeats as you fumble with the gameplay and crash and burn. This one has a flow about it that really kicks into high gear once you learn it, however. It's not so dissimilar to some of today's modern games that rely on steep difficulties until you learn the mechanics. It's damn near worth the effort just for the gorgeous visuals, but either way, Gun Valkyrie is a trip well worth taking. In 2003, the developer From Software gave us an absolute masterpiece in Otage: Myth of Demons. It's mostly a straightforward third-person combat action game, but it has RPG elements so you can upgrade your weapons, abilities, and magic. It also has some absolutely unforgettable sound and visuals. The story here is about an undead warrior who is righting the wrongs of his past by fighting demons and saving the world. It set a standard that would have been fantastic to move on to the Shinobi franchise, and in many ways, I consider this a spiritual partner series to that. It was 3D action done right at a time when minigames were still clumsy and clunky. It was absolutely amazing to see the House of the Dead 3 in 2002. Not just because it was such a great game, but also because it took the formula from the previous titles and made it just as fun with a control pad. It still had light gun support if you wanted that arcade authenticity, but it also felt like a first-person shooter if you used a controller. You still had the two-player co-op, the interactive environments, the different endings, and the incredible visuals. It focused more on the action thanks to shotguns that would reload on their own. It was no joke intense too, the kind of thing that once you died, you were ready to continue and try again. Being set after the first two games, the world has been decimated by monsters. The story plays back the events of the past and reveals more about how and why things happened. It's one of my favorite releases in the series and was eventually brought to other consoles a few years later. It's great by itself, but once you add a friend, you have one of the best gun games on that platform.
We can't go this way. Lisa, keep running! See ya.
You may be asking yourself, is Sega Lord X seriously putting a sports game at number 4? Why yes, I certainly am. ESPN NFL 2K5 was dropped in the summer of 2004 and was one of the most impressive games of NFL football I have ever played. Visual Concepts had been perfecting their craft for 5 years at this point, and the NFL 2K series had never looked, sounded, or played this well before. It's got a perfect TV-style presentation, multiple ways to tackle your opponents, some of the best passing and running gameplay the sport has ever seen. The best part of this package was Sega released it for a mere $20 to combat the Electronic Arts sports menace that had cornered the industry. While it was a heck of a last hurrah, EA would go on to score an exclusivity contract with the NFL, shutting down Sega's masterful series permanently.
The 49ers will start this first play of the drive at their own 23-yard line.
Our receivers line up as the defense settles into a nickel package.
Lowe snags the dart right sideline, and he's just barely past the markers for a first.
Remember all the good things I said about Otage? Well, it all goes double for its 2004 sequel, Otage 2 Immortal Warriors. More playable characters, better visuals, a larger variety of weapons and magic. You wouldn't think a game that was already as good as the first could be improved upon so much, but From Software was up to the task. They employed a very simple strategy: give the player more of what made the first adventure so appealing. And the only thing it's really missing is a 2-player mode. There's so much here to sink yourself into. The amount of variety in the combat is insane, and the difficulty demands you learn your enemies inside and out to see the ending. A simple overview like this cannot do it justice, so I'll leave you with this. If you have never played Otage or its sequel, find a way to change that immediately. I was the type of gamer that was really sad to see the Panzer Dragoon series go the RPG route because I love the action of the first two so much. I know that sounds insane to some Saturn owners, but I just didn't dig the change to random battles and searching for stuff. So when the series returned to what made it great in 2002 with Panzer Dragoon Orta, I was stoked. And what a return it was. The dreaded Empire is back and their dragon mares are wreaking havoc on the land. A mysterious girl named Orta is rescued by a dragon who carries her into what seems like an unwinnable fight. This was such a great game, and a return to form that made my old school heart proud. That great on-rails 360-degree shooting action was complemented perfectly by its impeccable audio-visual presentation. I mean, this game is the standard bearer for all on-rail shooters. It didn't happen by accident either. Smilebit developed it, but they had a number of the original Team Andromeda that made the Saturn games with them. That mix of old and new visions equaled a product that was a highlight of that generation. The fact that Sega has made no sequel or continuation of any kind afterwards is nothing short of heartbreaking. Most of you have probably guessed already what my number one was gonna be. In 2004, Sumo Digital brought home the AM2 arcade classic, Outrun 2. I had loved the arcade version, so when this came out, I was there immediately. I must say the porting job was excellent thanks to the Xbox hardware being so similar to the Chihiro arcade board. It looked and played great, and those tunes blasting away were nostalgia overload. The first version added tracks from Daytona 2 and Scud Race, and the second release, called 2006 Coast to Coast, added even more content. It doesn't really matter which one you choose. Outrun 2 by any name was a fast and beautiful driving game with perfect drifting mechanics and additional modes that gave it near infinite replay value. I have played Sega arcade games since I was able to stand at the machines and reach the joystick, and Outrun 2 is my favorite of the bunch. To have this at home was a dream come true, and it remains one of the best ways to play it all these years later. Typically in a top 10, I tell you the positions are arbitrary and really don't matter. The important thing is all the games are great, and that's really what the episode is about. But that isn't the case here. The top 6 on this list are there for a reason, and they are significantly better than the rest. The same goes for the top 3. They are some of the best games of that generation. You can argue sales figures all you want. These games define their genres in ways that I honestly feel has not been surpassed to any meaningful degree in the 20 years since. That's one of the reasons the original Xbox is so special for me. It felt like a continuation of the Sega of old in some ways, like the Dreamcast had never been cancelled, but instead was just marketed under a new name. Sega's output was pretty prolific on the PlayStation 2 as well, but the exclusives they released on the Xbox are nearly timeless. It was old Sega's last real run, and it was as great as the company had ever been. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.